Welcome back to the Crypto's Key conversation. There's a lot of market volatility, a lot of turmoils within the markets, a lot of fear out there, a lot of uncertainty. And I just quickly wanted to come in here and just kind of briefly touch on a little bit of Ripple versus SEC stuff, kind of what's going on in the community from Digital Asset Investor posting this video. Also going to take a quick look at Stefan Huber's tweet here on his take on ETHgate, and then we're going to jump into kind of what's going on in the overall market, kind of looking at blockchain backer stuff. Watcher Guru had some updates on liquidations. Take a look at this article, and then look at some more stuff from Michael Saylor and a pretty funny video in regards of answering, why Bitcoin isn't going to zero and so on. Then we're going to end on this LFG to deploy 1.5 billion to bolster UST peg and build Bitcoin reserves. So I just wanted to quickly come in here and say, I hope all of you are doing well. Hope all of your family is doing okay health-wise, especially when it comes to these crazy times within all our markets, all the geopolitical stuff, all the uncertainty that's out there. I know it's super scary with inflation, talks of recession. So I just want to, send you guys some love and pray for you guys and hope everything's going well. I know when it comes to our market in particular, the crypto market being at a 1.49, almost a 1.5 trillion dollar market cap, sent down 8.6%. Our portfolios are truly decimated at this point. So I just wanted to send a little bit of love and positivity. Looking at this, Bitcoin sitting at 31,016. So obviously, if we come in here and look at the 24-hour on Bitcoin, let's kind of see how it's been fluctuating. So we were just at 35, pretty much 35,000 coming all the way down. So there's been a lot of, let's look at the 7-day real quick. Yeah, so 40,000 all the way down. We're down almost 10K within the past 7 days. So it's just literally just been straight chaos in our market. I've been here since late 2017, early 2018, so I've been through a lot of market volatility and turmoil, and XRP and being one of my biggest investments. I rode through a lot, and I'm still holding strong. I've seen my asset go all the way up to, 380, all the way back down, up to almost $2 now, all the way back down to a lot of my entry levels here, even though I was down in like the teens and the low 20s. I've seen a lot and I've been through a lot. So I know, especially those of you that are out there that are new to the market and just recently invested, I know what you're going through and you're not alone. So hopefully you didn't spread yourself out too thin and almost made it impossible for yourself to be able to hold or just hold on to your assets while still being able to live the life you live and pay the bills, your monthly bills and all that good stuff. Coming over here to the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, we're currently sitting at 11, and this thing updates in 5 hours and 28 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing broke down in the single digits. We're obviously down in this 11 range. We've been living in this extreme fear range. We've been at 10 in the past. So I'm curious to see how this thing's going to update. Obviously, there's a lot of FUD, a lot of negative narratives, and like we were just talking about, inflation, geopolitical stuff, talks of recession, just all markets being decimated. And if we come over here to, let's go to CNBC real quick. Let's see where we're looking at. If we come over to CNBC, even S&P 500 almost down 3%, NASDAQ almost down 4%. So there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of fear out there, a lot of people selling. So I just, like I said, I just want to send a little bit of positivity and just know you're not alone. And if you have the ability to accumulate on these dips and dollar cost average down, increase your portfolio holdings, bring your cost average down and hold strong, then that's awesome. And if not, it's totally understandable. You got to do what's best for you and your family, and you shouldn't feel ashamed for it. Coming over here, I just wanted to touch on this really quick. This is a pretty cool video. It's about 4 minutes and 53 seconds. This is from Digital Asset Investor, and this is actually from Mike Jansen. So if we kick in here, it's actually pretty funny. Let's take a listen into this.
If you haven't been following that case, well, check out our previous episodes, or just listen to this 10-second summary from our 7-year-old correspondent, Rowan Miller.
SEC head Jay Clayton filed a highly suspect lawsuit against Ripple Labs. The problem, Clayton was serving the interests of his law firm because a client's top rival was Ripple Labs. In short, I'd say regulatory capture.
Agreed. Fast forward a year and a half, and now we've got Gary Gensler heading the SEC. And while this slippery fish didn't start the lawsuit, Gensler wiggles around avoiding clear answers just the same. So much so that Judge Nepern has noticed something fishy. It's practically a scene from Monty Python, only with a smart judge. In comes the SEC with Brad Garlinghouse saying, "He's a witch! Burn him! Burn him!" And then Judge Nepern says, "Okay, why do you think Ripple has done something illegal?" And the SEC replies, "Because, by our definition, Ripple's a security." Judge says, "Well, what's your definition?" And this is where it gets silly. The SEC shuffles through all its public communications and pulls out one tiny thing and says, there, we kind of said something about it here, sort of, mostly. But this is crazy, because the SEC said dozens of things to the contrary as well, and Ripple brings that up. Naturally, Judge Netburn asks to see the rest of the SEC's internal communications. But the SEC doesn't want to show the judge the rest of their internal communications. Think about that. The SEC is like a police investigator who doesn't want to show their evidence to the court. Why? Well, there's only two obvious reasons. One, they don't want to turn over the evidence because they show that Ripple's innocent, and or two, the documents incriminate key players from this SEC, such as Hinman or Jay Clayton. Now, there's a third, which is that they just don't know what they're doing. And that's also quite possible. But either way, it's the SEC, the proverbial police in the story, that looks suspicious, not Ripple. Time keeps passing. And instead of just handing over the rest of the SEC's internal communications, the SEC keeps filing crazy excuses, asking for more time, stalling. Finally, in April, Judge Netburn said, enough's enough. And then she started cracking skulls with her gavel, splitting Gensler's noggin open like a boiled egg. Okay, not really. But her final response was, this is nonsense. You either turn over your unredacted documents or you essentially drop the case. And at that point, it looked like this SEC versus Ripple nightmare would finally be settled in Ripple's favor, probably by the end of August. But the weasels at the SEC filed one more motion at the last possible hour to buy more time. And Ripple, unfortunately, had to agree in order to prevent further backslide on the ruling date. The result, it pushed out likely trial results until March of 2023. Seriously, I imagine this sent Judge Netburn on a killing spree against the SEC. Meanwhile, at the top of the court food chain in this case is Judge Annalisa Torres. Now, while Judge Netburn was on a rampage, Judge Torres had the authority to order a revised timeline favoring Ripple, making November a more likely finish line for the case. Now, that's a win for Ripple, although not as satisfying as the earlier August timeline. In spite of this lawsuit, one thing you have to look at is that RippleNet usage has doubled. Ripple's on-demand liquidity volume is up 765%. The weird thing is Ripple keeps growing worldwide. So keep in mind, the SEC battled Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, Google, and Amazon. These SEC lawsuits are starting to look more like a rite of passage than a roadblock, a kind of tax on companies that are big enough. In all this time, the SEC hasn't been able to level any truly specific charges on Ripple. They act like they're suing a thief, but in reality, their lawsuit just appears to be testing and forging a new and worthy king. And while Ripple grows, yet another anti-corruption lawsuit has just been filed against the SEC. Standard disclaimers in mind, I'm not a financial advisor, but I continue.
So, I mean, clearly, long story short, for us that's been following the case and what's going on in our community, I mean, we're all well aware of all that information, and I just thought it was a great video, and I want to thank, Digital Asset Investor for posting this, retweeting it, and Mike Jansen for putting this up, and whoever this gentleman is here. Moving on here, Stefan Huber says, I'm summarizing that hashtag ETHGate timeline for a newspaper article, and every time I've done a summary so far, I don't get a single doubt because we may be exaggerated or misunderstood something. I realize all the more every time I go through it, how inconceivably obvious everything is. How every piece of the puzzle fits perfectly into each other. How all the undisputable facts we found can be put together without any effort. We didn't make anything fit to our narrative. Everything fits together itself. We don't even have to interpret, just summarize it. Crazy. So I 100% agree. And I mean, if you really dive into it and you really read through it and kind of see all the information that we've put out from all the video footage, audio footage, and everything that's kind of going in the documents, I mean, you really see that everything is literally piecing together perfectly. the community isn't trying to have this ETHgate scandal and this Ethereum free pass fit, their narrative. I mean, that's not what it's about. We don't want, to be like the SEC and try to, damage and put this dark cloud over the entire space. We just want, regulatory clarity that the space deserves, and we want, a level playing field that the space deserves. And it's just all facts. I mean, that's really what it is. And Johnny Deaton still talks about to this day. It's like these facts aren't in dispute. Crazy. So now moving on from the Ripple versus SC stuff, I wanted to touch on kind of what's going on in the overall market. When I say overall market, obviously we have to, pretty much start with the umbrella, Bitcoin, it being typically the first mover, and everything kind of follows suit on what's going on with Bitcoin. Blockchain Backer is one of the technical analysts that I follow pretty heavily, and I actually have a pretty good sized group of TA guys that I follow because I value their opinion, and not all of them are going to be in agreement. Blockchain Backer was one of the only ones that truly early on was had high conviction that Bitcoin was in a bear market. He was just pretty much waiting for a retracement. When it came to I would say a majority of the other analysts I follow, they felt at the time earlier this year that we were still in a bull market to where they were expecting a Bitcoin all-time high. So the reason why I'm throwing that Blockchain Backer here is because he compares the Dow Jones to our market. He compares kind of what's going on in the regular market to our market, because we've seen that there's been a lot of correlation, especially when it comes to, tech stocks. When you think of NASDAQ and they consider Bitcoin a tech stock, well, it's not. But clearly what's happening in the regular market has been having some correlation and effect in our market. So he's talking about, he was taking a look at all these support levels, okay? And he pulled up, the Dow Jones, he pulled up Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and all these other assets, and he was pretty much showing like their major support zones, and he wanted to see if they were going to hold this level. So he had recently came out and said Dow Jones officially pierces the lows for February. Yuck. So I'm going to keep an eye on his Twitter and kind of see the updates as the day progresses, and see what happens, see if we get some sort of bounce and recovery out of here. But he's pretty much saying that, based on, these assets piercing these technical levels, I mean, it could change, in a sense, the narrative, if I'm not speaking incorrectly here. But so we're going to just continue to see. But the reason why I'm throwing this up is because it's just showing you a lot of negativity in this narrative, and this fear that's being induced into the markets, not just our markets, all markets, especially in the crypto market though. And there's been a lot of sell-off and liquidations that's been happening, which we're going to carry into here. It says Watcher Guru says just in 508 million has been liquidated from the cryptocurrency market in the past 24 hours. So for those of you that don't know what liquidations are, these are people that trade on leverage. So they would say like, I have $1,000 and I'm gonna do a 2x leverage or a 5x leverage. So turn in their $1,000 to $2,000 or $5,000 to pretty much give them more. So if they're so say they're going long, meaning like they expect Bitcoin to go up in price. Obviously they would make good money doing that. Now, if they were going long and Bitcoin price ended up dumping like it recently did, then their account, if they didn't have a stop loss set, they would be completely wiped out and liquidated. So that's what this is talking about. 500 million in the past 24 hours have been liquidated. So these liquidations tend to have a domino effect or a trickle effect, or a snowball effect, to where once we have sell off going on, or even if it could be the other way, it can be liquidations for shorts. But in this instance, we're having a major sell off in the market. If we come over here and look at Bitcoin, look, you could just look at this 7 day right here. So we're having a major sell off. So if people were going long, which they have been, and there's been major sell off, a lot of liquidations going to happen. So once liquidations are happening, people see that data, that on-chain data, and then they're continuing to sell. Then there's FUD articles and negative narratives and a lot of uncertainty and geopolitical stuff, inflation, talks of recession, and it's just a continuing snowball effect that's growing and growing and growing. And now we're here where we are. We're at down almost 10,000 from where we were just a few days ago. So coming over here, this article from News BTC, if we come down here, you can kind of look at some of the liquidations. You got Bitcoin was at this time, I think this was at the time it was 421, but obviously it's risen since. But it says 144 million, 121 for Ethereum, 15, almost 16 for Luna. We have Tron 8, Sol 7.5, Doge 7.2. You got XRP 6 million, ApeCoin almost $6 million. You can see, these people are getting wrecked, and it's affecting the entire market on top of all the other stuff that's going on. So with all those liquidations, there's been a lot of talks of, as these prices are going down, when prices are high and Bitcoin's at its all-time high, people are just like, oh man, I wish I would have got in at 20,000, or I wish I would have got in at 30,000 or 40,000, whatever cases. They're just so just dreading the fact that they didn't pull the trigger, right? So they're just wishing, oh, I hope Bitcoin or XRP goes back down to this low price so I can buy it, right? So now we have all these liquidations. Bitcoin's back into the low 30s, and all these other assets are way back down. I mean, XRP went from like $1.20 or something all the way back down to 50 cents. So the question is what XRP Crypto was talking about. For everyone that's been praying for these low prices so you could buy the dip, well, here's your chance. Who's actually going to do it? Who was actually all talk? My thing is, who's going to pull the trigger? Coming over here, this is a great image. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I'm talking about, showing some love, trying to spread some positivity in these dark times that we're going through. Because I've been here. I've been in this market, and I've been through these ebbs and flows. I've been through a lot of stress, dealing with, my wife for certain investments of ours that just completely tanked, and her not really being in the charts or in the market like I am. So she don't really have an understanding. So me having to educate her and let her know kind of where we stand, or, how things are. Like dealing with all those different emotions and knowing we have, kids and we have work and there's so many different things going on. There's a lot of negativity in the markets. Your portfolio's down, 60 to 80% or whatever the case is. I've been there. So with that, I'm talking about now you're at the point to where if you have the ability to be able to purchase, dollar cost average down, be able to purchase more assets that you've always wanted to purchase. I mean, this is pretty much one of the times, and this is not financial advice, of course, but this is pretty much one of the times where you have the ability to do so. And if it fits your, your life and your ability financially, then go ahead and do it. And no one's gonna time the bottom. We can go down more for who knows. No one knows where we're gonna go. It can go further down, but the point is if you have the ability to dollar cost average, all you're doing is decreasing your portfolio. You're decreasing your price. Your purchase price, meaning your dollar cost averaging down. So it's just in the long term, if you're in a solid project, right, you have high conviction on, and your project has, great utility, great team behind it, and so on, solving a real world problem, then in the grand scheme of things, if you zoom out and look at this market, I mean, it tends to go up. So at some point you're going to be up and be doing better than it is now. So documenting Bitcoin has a great image here, and this is so true. So it's different prices, same psychology. So when it's 35,000, I mean, you have, I don't even consider this smart money. I think this is just people that have high conviction, and there may be some, gamblers here, but for the most part, these are people that, maybe have some education, high conviction in what they're investing in, really aren't stressed about, turning a profit, tomorrow or tonight, have, some sort of mid to long-term strategy. I'm saying I know there's other classifications or categories that might be in this line right here, but for the most part, these are people that truly have, high conviction on what they're investing in. So 35,000, you got people buying in. Usually in these prices, there's so much fear or negativity going around. All Bitcoin's going to zero. But, when we hit an all-time high, boom. Look how many people want to buy, right? And this is so true. It happens. You can see it in the charts. You can see it on the on-chain data. Same thing, 9,000, very few people, very small percentage of the community buying in. 19,000, boom. And the same thing applies. So what XRP Crypto was talking about is so true. It's you have your chance. Who's going to do it? Or was it just all talk? Is there so much fear in the market that you're not even going to take a chance at doing what you say you were going to do? I mean, I've been there. I've been on both sides of it. I've been this person that bought in, at the peaks of 2018, right? And I've been that person that's trying to turn a profit, tonight. And I've been the person that's tried to trade and got completely wiped out or got scammed or whatever case. So I've done all those things, and I'm still not perfect. But from my experience in the market, especially holding my portfolio, knowing that I'm holding assets that I feel truly have staying power, that have great utility and can solve a real world problem, have a great team behind it. I'm this person. So if I have the ability to DCA, especially during these times, even if this isn't the bottom, it can continue to go down. This is me. This is where I'm at. I'm on this side. So I just kind of want to, just have this education going out there. I know there's great YouTubers out there and people on Twitter that kind of share the same sentiment and share the same story to, the newcomers out there, because I think it's extremely important. Coming over here, I thought this was quite interesting. So this is Michael Saylor. So Speaking of Michael Saylor, real quick before I play this video, there's been a lot of talk about they were kind of torturing him on Twitter. Oh, Michael Saylor saying sell your house, sell everything, and buy Bitcoin when it was at in the high 50s, mid to high 50s and 60s, and now they're saying Bitcoin's down in the 30s and he's close to his liquidation or his what do you call it? God, I'm blanking on the name. Pretty much where they he took a loan against his Bitcoin, margin call. They're saying he's close to his margin call or whatever, and they're pretty much saying one of the biggest mistakes ever, yada yada yada, whatever. Michael Saylor has a lot of capital. He has massive companies behind him. He has high conviction on Bitcoin. I mean, I would like to think he knows what he's doing. But with that being said, he tends to have to answer this question a lot of can you explain Bitcoin, or why is Bitcoin not going to zero? And just his reaction right here is hilarious. They had like a little compilation here. Look at it.
Why don't you break this down simply for people like me that don't fully understand it?
Okay.
If you went out the yield curve on bonds, or if you went in.
Sure.
Is constantly growing. It's happening as all of these new companies,
So let's just start at the beginning, if you don't mind explaining what is it?
Sure.
Okay, look. When I interview, especially when I interviewed for the fire department, when I was testing in and I got on with the fire department, that was one of my strategies. Before I started speaking, because I was so anxious, I was nervous at the same time, I would take a super deep breath like that, and it calmed me down. It kind of slowed me down because I talk fast. So I don't know if that's one of his strategies to kind of calm himself down, work his nerves, or if that's, if he has some sort of health implication that permits him to do that, or if that's truly like him being like, here I go again, I got to explain this, or are you guys really this dumb? Like, who knows? I'm curious. I would actually love to ask him if that's part of his strategy or if that's just frustration or whatever the case is. But that's so true, though. I mean, there's been a lot of negative people out there when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto that say, oh, it's going to zero, it's a Ponzi scheme, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, if you look at the track record, if you look at, its comparison to other asset classes out there, there's nothing better. There's nothing more outperforming it. It's crazy. And the rate of adoption, they're comparing it to the ages of the internet. It's already surpassed that. Its trajectory is already way above it. It's absolutely crazy. Will Clemente right here, I think another TA guy here, has this image here, and it's so it goes into this narrative, or this what I'm trying to share with you in regards of what we're going through right now, and just knowing that you're not alone, and you got to take a deep breath, take a step back, and reevaluate where you stand and what you need to do for what's best for you and your family. Whether that's selling a little bit, whether that's taking profits, if you still earn profit, or whether that's hodling or whatever the case is. In this instance, it's saying hodling. A lot of people think that hodling's casual bike ride, straight line to the finish line. In some instances, it may work for some people, like, the people that jumped into the Doge hype. The first time they've ever invested, they bought Doge on, I think you could have got it on Robinhood at the time. I can't remember. But, they just bought in, and boom, overnight they became millionaires or, thousandaires or whatever the case is. I mean, that's pretty much a straight line for them, right? But in reality, when you're truly investing, and, you're, especially when you're going through the ebbs and flows of the market cycles, this is what you get. I mean, you may catch a ride here, but you may drop down here and have to climb out, just like kind of we're kind of dipping down into some chaos and some negative narratives and a lot of market turmoil. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And this is more of a realistic, like, hodling approach. And like I told you, I've invested in the crypto market and XRP, which is one of my biggest investments from late 2017, early 2018, and been accumulating and holding ever since. So this has been my reality, my wife's and I reality. It's never been this. So I think this is absolutely massive. And I think we as investors, especially new investors, I think you need to really take this to heart and have this burned into your memory and or your Rolodex. So, when we do get in these times, you understand, like, hey, I have high conviction on what I've invested in. I've done the research. I haven't over leveraged, or excuse me, overextended myself. I haven't put too much money in, in regards of not being able to live my daily lives and pay my monthly bills or whatever cases. I've put in enough to where if all hell was to break loose, I wouldn't completely be torched. Like, if you take that approach and you leave this in your memory, like, you can pretty much ride through the ebbs and flows of the market, just like, we all have. The people that's been here since 2015, 2016, or whatever the case is. Like, this is the reality when it comes to hodling assets. And speaking of Michael Saylor, so there's been this revolving theme about him talking about, I got to go back to McDonald's. I got to go back to my job. And he goes, Monday morning, it's time to get back to work. So some people, I find this hilarious. And I think this is, in times like this, it makes me feel better, right? But this is just me from my experience in the market and where I stand as in my portfolio. My wife and I financially are okay, even if our portfolio goes to zero. Like, this brings humor and light into this dark period, or this cloudy period. We won't say dark, but some people may look at this and be highly offended by this, I believed in you and you told me to do A, B, and C, and D. It's like, okay, well, now you should, you can be frustrated, but more importantly, you kind of got to look in the mirror and look at yourself like, okay, hey, was that the right approach? Did I overextend myself? Should I have taken, his advice with a grain of salt and, reevaluated what he said into fitting into my, my investing strategy and my lifestyle? That's kind of how you got to think about these things. And I'm not sitting here trying to preach. I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I mean, we took a fat loss just last year, which was nice for our taxes, but, I make mistakes still, and when it comes to investing. Now, when it comes to my main portfolio, whether I'm not, super speculating, obviously most of this stuff is speculation, but when it's not, to super speculation or trying out different things, whether it be NFTs or whatever, like, I'm pretty sound, but I still make those same mistakes. I still have those same frustrations. Even seeing this in the market, it still bothers me. It still affects me. But I have to remind myself of stuff like this. Like, this is the reality, and this, it's like, Am I going to be this person, or am I going to be this person that's going to stick to my word and my strategy of hey, I'm going to have my cash reserves and be ready to, invest in when things take a massive dip, whether I catch the bottom or not. That's kind of, that's kind of how I view it. I just wanted to share my sentiment on that. I was going to cover this article, but I think, I've already hit it on the head. It's 27 minutes. This is the Let's F and Go wallet here. It says to deploy $1.5 billion to bolster UST's peg and build its Bitcoin reserve. So obviously they got approval from their council vote to execute a loan for $750 million worth of BTC to over the counter trading firms to help protect the UST peg, and then another $750 UST to accumulate BTC as market conditions normalize. So it says, quote, while buys and sells of UST are not meaningfully directional now, we felt it was valuable to have capital ready to be deployed in the current market. As markets recover, we plan to have the loan redeemed to us in BTC, increasing the size of our actual total reserve. So I think personally this is a great approach, and to increase their holdings. And obviously, just like the rest of us, if you can have the capital, free up some capital to be able to, dollar cost average and accumulate some more, this is the time to do it. So why can't, this community that has a lot of money to throw in, why can't they do the same thing? Anyways, there's a lot that's going on. Just know that you're not alone. And I really have to spread that information and that word to you. You're not alone, okay? You got to do what's best for you and your family at the end of the day. And if there's some frustration that you hold, that's okay. That's all normal. I still have it. So just know you don't have to get on yourself. Don't do anything irrational. Really think about what's best for you, what's best for your investment strategy. And I think at the end of the day, all will be well if you do what's proper for you and your family. This market isn't going anywhere. This volatility is normal for us. We're sitting at almost a 1.5 trillion. We'll see what the next few weeks and months look like for us. But if you really zoom out, don't zoom into the 1 hour, even to the daily. Zoom out weekly, monthly, and look at the trajectory of this market. Truly up. With all that being said, stay strong out there. Be safe.